You don't have to wait for somebody to go with you. You can go by yourself. And trust me, I've taken a lot of solo trips. Just to give you context of places that I've traveled to alone, I have been to Mexico, Colombia, Peru, Bahamas, France, Spain, Germany, Italy, Hungary. I think that's it. But I've been to all those places by myself. I've also taken mini trips within the US by myself. I moved to Colorado for a while, went to LA, Nashville. I've done a lot of solo traveling, and so I feel qualified to speak on this. I am making this video because this is a video I wish that I would have had whenever I was 18, 19, 20. I took my first solo trip whenever I was 20 years old. Honestly, I feel like if you're going to wait for somebody else to go with you, you just don't really get to travel that much because, at least for me, adventure has always been like my number one priority. It's always been like my passion. And so I followed this girl on Instagram who, her name used to be Gypsy on. I think it's Hannah Holler now. She's changed it. And at the time, she posted a lot about traveling alone as a woman. And I just thought, oh my God, like if she can do it, I can do it. I was super inspired and I booked my first trip to Rome for 4 days. I was like, I want to start small. And just for context, Rome is like a 1 hour flight from Paris. I wasn't staying in Paris, but pretty close to it. I went to Rome and I booked myself at a hostel and I had a great time. Like, there were bad things, there were good and bad to that trip. But my main takeaway from the trip was like, I was worried that I was going to go and be lonely, and I wasn't. I met friends the first day at the hostel, and it was just like a really wholesome experience, and I had so much fun. And I just kept doing it. I've been on, I don't know, probably at least 10 solo trips. Anyway, so let me get into the tips. I'm going to give you a list of like tips to do for your trip, what I would recommend, what I've done, things I've learned from, mistakes I've made. Number one, you need to pick the right destination for your trip. So obviously you want to think about safety. If you are on a budget, you want to think, is it affordable? But I try to look for places that are fairly easy to get around on foot, like without a car. Obviously, you could rent a car if you have the budget for that, but I prefer to go to places that are walkable. I would choose a place that is a tourist attraction already. Generally, whenever you're traveling, if you stay near the touristy parts of town, you're pretty safe. Not that you can't venture off that path, but just as a general rule of thumb, it's almost always safe where the tourists are. So, also, I would say for your first trip, don't choose somewhere where there's a huge language barrier. Like, obviously, I went to Italy and spoke no Italian, but I knew that there were going to be people there that spoke English. I probably wouldn't go to like somewhere super remote where they only speak a language that I don't speak. You know what I mean? Because it's just going to add another level of difficulty. You can start slow and then move up. Like, I started with a 4 day trip, and then since then I've done a 5 month trip by myself. So that, like, go slowly. Also, like, if you're feeling super scared, you could even do something that's like a road trip, just a few states over, or if you're in Europe, one country over. I don't know, depending on where you live, you could go somewhere that's pretty close to home so you're not as uncomfortable. But I would recommend that you go somewhere that's far enough that it's different from where you live. Like, you want to be outside of your comfort zone for sure. But if you really feel like you need something smaller, you could do something closer to home to start with. So I'm making this video for somebody who's on a budget and wanting to travel alone, because that's where I was at whenever I was 20. So the biggest costs of traveling are where you stay and your flight, usually. So I usually start, the way I plan a trip is I buy my flight and then I worry about everything else after. That's just me. I'm type B, so I don't know. I don't really stress about it. But what I like to do is I'll look for flights. Say I'm looking to go, pick a date range, like a month when you want to go, and then look for flights to this place that you want to go. Say you want to go to Vietnam. So you put in, okay, I'm not going to use Vietnam because I've never been there. Say you want to go to Colombia. So you choose a month. Okay, I'm going to go in April of next year. And then what you can do is, I have several websites and I could go way more into depth with this, but basically you switch around the airports, you switch around the dates, you're flexible. You try to find the cheapest. Generally, one-way flights versus round trip, it's cheaper to buy multiple one-ways instead of one round trip. But anyways, do like spend some time looking for a flight because you can save hundreds of dollars. Like my flight round trip, like there and back to France was $700, which is very cheap. I would say now, I mean, it's usually starting at 1200. So I saved easily $500 just by, researching and looking for a cheap flight. Okay, where to stay? In my opinion, the most important part of solo travel is where you stay. It completely can make or break a trip. I am 100% a proponent of hostels. I think it's the best way to solo travel. I personally use an app called Hostel World. I know there's a couple others, and I think I've tried, I think I've used another one. I don't remember what it's called though right now. But Hostel World is my favorite. It's basically you put in your information, make an account, and then you can look at your destination and the dates and see which places have openings. I would recommend reading a bunch of reviews before you book a place because I've definitely stayed in some bad hostels. There was one I stayed at in Colombia, in Cartagena, where it's like very hot there. I mean, like in the 90s every day. And this place had AC, but like didn't turn it on or barely turned it on. So it was so hot in the room. But honestly, the positive experiences way outweigh the bad. So I totally recommend it. It's a great place to make friends, and you can kind of choose your vibe. Like if you want to go and party, there's plenty of party hostels. If you want like a very chill, calm, relaxing one, there's that too. If you want something literally on the beach, it's the cheapest place to stay. I think the cheapest hostel I've stayed at was $6 a night, and the most expensive is somewhere around $30 a night. I mean, they're very cheap, and honestly, some of them are like really nice. There was one that I stayed at in Tulum, Mexico, and it literally looked like a resort. There was a pool there with a swim up bar. It's just super nice. So for sure, read the reviews, choose what's best for you, what fits your vibe. Make sure you're looking to see where it's at, close to the stuff that you want to go to. A lot of the hostels have excursions that you can book from the hostel. I would not recommend booking those. I mean, you can, it's just not, it's usually more expensive than just going to the thing yourself. Like a lot of times those excursions are just like, you're just paying a tour guide to walk you around a place that's free to go anyways. So I don't know, unless you really feel like you need that, don't book it. But one thing I would recommend doing anytime I go to a new city, I always like to, on the first day, the first morning, I book a free walking tour, and it's free. And then it's polite. You should leave a tip. I usually tip, I don't know, $5 or $10, but it's literally a 2-hour walking tour. And I think it's the best way to acclimate yourself. You usually make friends when you're doing that, and you just kind of get your bearings without having to go out and be alone right away. And so that's my favorite thing to do when I first get somewhere. How to actually afford traveling. I could make a whole nother video on this, but basically just prioritize it. If you can live somewhere with rent that's not super expensive, that's the number one way to save money, because rent is usually the largest bill that people have. And then besides that, anytime I'm preparing for a trip, I usually work 2 jobs. I'll work something during the day and then something in the evening. But I basically just work as much as I can. I honestly don't go out at all if I'm planning for a trip, or hardly at all. I go monk mode, and the only way you're going to see me is if we work together. So, or if I really care about you. I could say a lot more about this, but I feel like it's a whole other topic because I could just go down a lot of rabbit holes with how to afford travel. A lot of people ask me if I'm lonely when I'm solo traveling, and the answer is no. I have really never once been lonely on a solo trip. I will say the only trip that made me feel kind of lonely was the 5-month trip, but it was because it wasn't that I was ever alone. I was just kind of wishing that I had somebody to share the whole trip with, but that's a bit different because it was a really long trip. So I was away from, close friends and family for 5 months. But on my shorter trips, I have never once felt lonely. Especially if you're staying at a hostel, you're going to make friends right away. I actually was feeling the opposite. I was feeling over socialized on a lot of my longer trips where I would purposely go book an Airbnb because I just wanted to be alone for a couple days. But hostels are very social. It's super easy to make friends. People are super friendly. Everybody's there alone generally, or sometimes there's couples, but most people are there to socialize, to make friends. They're going to want to do the same things you're going to do. It's just a great way to meet people with similar interests, similar hobbies, because whatever activities you want to do, there's somebody else there who wants to do the same activity and they don't want to go alone either. So it's a perfect way to make friends. Even if you don't stay in a hostel, like I said, the free walking tour is a great place to make friends. If you go on any type of other tour, like I've done paid tours by myself. I did what's it called? A cenote tour in Mexico by myself. And it was basically just me and this family. And they were so shocked that I was in Mexico by myself. And I was just telling them all about how much fun I'd been having. And they invited me back to their resort, actually. I didn't go because I had some other tour planned or something. But people are so friendly. And there's a lot of Americans. Wherever you're from, you're probably going to meet somebody from your country unless you're from some very remote country. But as an American, like I like meeting people from other countries. I love getting to learn more about other cultures. And traveling's the best way to do that. There's also something that a lot of hostels do that whenever you first get there, they give you like a free token for a free drink or something. They usually have a bar in the hostel. And on your first night, it's a good idea, even if you don't drink, to just go to the bar, drink a soda, something. And it's just a great way to get to know people. And I promise you, even if you feel uncomfortable going to stuff like that alone, it's uncomfortable for like 5 minutes. And then you talk to one person and you completely get over it. And then you're just having fun. Okay, safety as a woman alone. For sure, this is important. I'm not just saying you should be reckless and travel, but there are definitely things that can keep you safe. I would say in general, no matter where you're at, I would not go out like clubbing or anything like that. I wouldn't go out at night alone unless you're somewhere that's very safe and you feel very comfortable. But even then, I would be very careful, and I probably wouldn't go out until I had established friends, specifically female friends. If you're gonna go out, you should probably know how you're gonna get home. Can you take an Uber? Because really walking home at night is not an option unless you have a big group of people, preferably some men who could go with you. But otherwise, I wouldn't risk it. Usually you can stay at the hostel. Usually there's a bar at the hostel. If you're really wanting to like go out, you can do that from your hostel. Don't tell random people that you're traveling alone. Common sense, but I wouldn't tell anybody. And if they ask, just say that you're meeting up with a friend. That's all they need to know. You don't really need to share more than that. I have definitely told other women that I was traveling alone, but it was like after we established a friendship, and usually they were other women who were traveling alone, but I definitely wouldn't tell a man that I'm traveling by myself. I also wouldn't tell anybody where you're staying. I wouldn't post where you're at online. Like if you're someone who's on social media, wait a week and post once you've already left that place because you just never know. And I definitely used to post everything in real time, but I don't know, as I've gotten older, I don't think I would do that now. There's just some weirdos out there. So I wouldn't be doing that, especially if you're posting like very specific locations. It's one thing if you want to post, something that's a bit more vague and they couldn't follow you to. Keep your phone on you, keep your phone charged. If you need it, bring a battery pack. It's always good to have access to the internet if you can. I've definitely been places where I didn't have internet access and I didn't necessarily feel unsafe, but I think it just depends. Like most of the safety stuff for traveling alone as a woman is use your common sense. If you feel like you shouldn't be in a place, turn around. You probably shouldn't be there. I've definitely been places where it's like I took a turn and I just am like, I don't know. I don't feel like I should go this way. You should listen to that voice in your head. Don't go that way. Whenever you're scheduling stuff, do not schedule to get on a bus at 3 a.m. I know it's cheaper, and I'm saying this from experience. On my very first trip in Rome, I scheduled my bus back. It was at 3 a.m., and that is the most unsafe I've ever felt solo traveling, was walking around like downtown Rome by the train station at 3 a.m., lost, trying to find my bus. It was very scary. and I will never do that again unless you are with somebody else. And even then, just try to avoid it. I know you're going to save 20 bucks, but it's not worth it. One thing you can do if you don't have service in the place you're going, you can buy a sim. I don't really think it's worth it if you're only going to be there for a week. I would just pay, your phone plan to my phone is just unlocked internationally, and I know it works in all of Latin America. I don't really know about Europe, but when I was in France, I bought a SIM card because obviously I was there for so long that it was completely worth it. It was like $5 a month for unlimited internet or something. I don't know why, but European phone plans are ridiculously cheap, and I'm sure it's that way in many other countries in the world. I think American phone plans are just outrageous. I would keep your money hidden, and I generally will put it somewhere that's like not even just hidden, but not a place you would expect it. Like put it in your bra, put it in your sock, put it in like a pouch under your clothes. Same thing, like if you're wearing a backpack and you're going to get onto a packed subway or on a train or you're somewhere crowded, put your backpack on your chest. I would never walk around with a backpack in a busy place. I have been robbed like that before. In Paris on the train, somebody stole, I mean, it honestly didn't matter. Somebody stole like my beanie out of my backpack. I was also robbed in Spain. My backpack was 5 feet away from me in a park and turned around. It was gone. So just be mindful, especially when you're in super crowded places. I wouldn't take your eyes off of your belongings. And there's certain places that you really shouldn't have your phone out. It depends where you're at. Again, do the research. Wherever you're going, you need to read about the country, see what people are saying, get on Reddit. Like, you need to know, like, there's certain places that you should not go, and you need to know that. And there's certain things you shouldn't do. Every country's different, and you don't have to be paranoid. Like, I honestly don't feel scared usually when I'm traveling. You just need to be aware of your surroundings and be smart, use common sense. This kind of goes along with safety, but what you should do with your stuff. Just for context, I almost always travel with just a carry-on. And because on my very first trip, I packed 2 large suitcases and it was the worst experience. It's so hard to travel with that much luggage. If you can swing a carry-on, it's the best way to travel. And I've gone on long trips with just a carry-on. So anyways, pack light and keep your stuff safe. I always bring a lock and key. Anytime I'm staying in a hostel, they generally have a locker for you to put your stuff in. Lock it every time you're out of the room. Even if you're just going to the bathroom, I lock that up. I also bring a copy of all my important documents, driver's license, passport, if you have a visa, your visa, stuff like that, because I've had my passport stolen and it sucked, but I had copies with me, so it wasn't as big of a deal as it could have been. And I was able to get an emergency passport just a couple of weeks later while I was still in France. How to plan without over planning. I personally am not a planner. I like to just show up and do things, but I like to have some stuff planned. So just to give you an example of the level of planning I like to do, I went to Peru. It was originally going to be a 2-week trip, ended up being a 5-week trip because I had so much fun. But I originally went, really the only thing I wanted to see, the only thing I cared about was Machu Picchu. I had like read a book about Machu Picchu. Since I was like 10 years old, I wanted to go. So anyways, I had all of that day planned out. And besides that, I really didn't make any plans. I just like booked a place for a week and showed up. And then as soon as I got there, everybody was telling me, you have to go to this place. You have to go to this place called Huacachina, which is like basically this place that's sand dunes. There's an oasis in the desert. A bunch of people drive like ATVs and you can surf down the sand dunes. And I went, and I think I was there for 2 days, and it was one of my favorite places I've ever been. And if I had planned every single day, I wouldn't have had the freedom to go do that. And that's usually how my trips go, is some of the best memories that I have are places that have been recommended to me by people after I already get there. So I wouldn't overbook yourself. And if you're like a crazy planner and you like to have everything planned, maybe plan every other day, or maybe plan half a day. I don't know. I think it's good though to leave the future undetermined, because what if you go and you meet somebody? Like, what if you meet a girl that you really vibe with and then you guys want to travel together? What if you meet a guy that you really like? You never know. So I like to leave it open so that I can change my plans. But it's also good to have some anchor points of things to kind of keep you grounded and make sure that you're, seeing things and stuff like that. Getting around when you don't speak the language. I will say when I first got to France, I had like technically studied French for I had technically studied French for like 10 years, but I practically spoke basically no French. And it was very hard. I would say it took like 2 weeks before it started getting easier, but I was still able to navigate everywhere. I think it just comes down to common sense. Like when you're in the train station, you can kind of figure out where you're going, even if you don't know what the signs say. I don't know if that makes sense, but between just common sense and Google Translate, I was able to get everywhere. And I think that applies to pretty much everywhere. I'm trying to think of any other trips where I think the biggest language barrier would have been France. When I was in Italy, everybody spoke English. I mean, Rome is such a huge tourist destination. So, okay, the mental part that nobody tells you about, this happens to me every single trip. Like the first day when I get there, I think, oh my God, why did I do this? This was such a terrible idea. And I just get super anxious and scared. And it's usually like right when I get off the plane. But it's the same feeling of when you go to like a party or something by yourself and you're super uncomfortable, you're really nervous, but then you do just get over it. And then you start having a bunch of fun and you kind of forget you were ever nervous in the first place. But like I said, I think the easiest way to get over that is to have something booked the first day. Usually for me, that's a walking trip, but I would start off with something like, don't give yourself free time when you first get there because you're going to be anxious. So, I mean, give yourself an hour or two to rest, but then you should have something booked either that evening or the next morning. Probably the next morning because then that gives you the evening to rest. You can kind of settle in, but it's good to get out and do something right away to get over that. And it really does pass after the first day, but that's completely normal. So if you feel like that, don't worry. Okay, and then to wrap up, if you're thinking about traveling, if it's going to be your first trip alone, just book the trip. Just book the flight and then you can worry about the details later. It's life-changing, I promise. I did one and I will never go back, and it's a lifelong. I will be traveling by myself my whole life. It really is life-changing. That sounds cliche, but it's taught me really that I can do anything. If I can travel by myself, I can do anything. It's super empowering. You're going to have a ton of fun. If I missed anything, let me know. If you have any other tips, please share them in the comments below. If you like this video, please subscribe. I will be posting more travel videos. I would like to do some hostel review videos. I really could go a lot more in depth into hostels, budget travel, all of that. So thank you for watching.